What's up, sport fans? This is Sam with SamShady Sports. Once again, today I'm coming at you with episode 6 of my USFL head coaching breakdown. This is the Kevin Sumlin episode. I personally think that Sumlin's background lends itself to be very successful in the USFL, and I have pointed out several different reasons why, as well as highlighted so many different players he's helped develop into an NFL level player, which in turn could help him attract players at the USFL level should they actually take a look at his resume like this. Um, Ultimately, someone was much like many other coaches who got his start as a player before he started coaching. He was a three-sport athlete in high school, playing football, hockey, and basketball. Following a solid high school career, he moved on to commit to Purdue. At Purdue, he would earn a job early on as a starter at linebacker and play next to Fred Strickland, another future NFL player. During his time in college, he also played with guys like Rod Woodson, Mel Gray, Chris Dishman, and Jim Everett. He played under head coach Leon Burtnett, and Burtnett would find himself benefiting from the solid career he had at Purdue with these NFL players below him. He would find himself at the NFL level as a running backs coach with the Colts following the graduation of Kevin Sumlin. Prior to his hiring by the Colts as a running back coach, Burtnett was primarily regarded as a defensive coach, having served as a defensive backs coach, linebackers coach, and defensive coordinator before accepting a head coaching position at Purdue. Also on the staff was Joe Tiller. Joe Tiller would be a very key member of Sumlin's future as a head coach or as a coach in general, whether it be an assistant or as a future head coach. Tiller is a very successful head coach who collected a 126 to 92 and 1 record while in coach or as a head coach in college. He also appeared in 11 bowl games. Along the way, helped severely by Kevin Sumlin, who served as an assistant underneath him in several stops. Following a solid college career, Sumlin began coaching um, because he was unable to find his place in the NFL. He began his career in 1989, which was actually 3 seasons removed from his graduation. Despite having over 30 years of coaching experience, he is still just 57 years old, um, having started in coaching at 25. His first position, he served as a graduate assistant under head coach Mike Price. Price is so well respected at the college level that he ended up spending over 20 years as the head coach at Washington State, where he would actually last from 1989 to 2002. Um, that is not exactly a common feat for any coaching level, whether it's high school, college, NFL, USFL, it really doesn't matter. Coaches don't stick around for 20 years unless they're regarded as some of the best at what they do. And that's exactly how Price was regarded. So getting a job under him for his first stint as a coach was a huge win for someone. I think this actually helped him in his future career by garnering recognition as a coach on a very prominent staff in the college level. Ultimately, after 2 seasons underneath Price, he would move on. I think ultimately he probably would have stayed with Price in Washington had it not been for the man I mentioned before, Joe Tiller, getting his first stint as a head coach with Wyoming. Uh, Someone would join him as his wide receiver coach, but would only stay for 2 seasons, the 91 and 92 season. He worked under Larry Corpitz, the offensive coordinator, and stayed until prior to the 1993 season, ironically just missing another future USFL head coach, Kirby Wilson, by 1 season. Wilson was hired in 1993. Moving on to Minnesota, where he would stay until 1996, he coached under longtime college coach, another very well-respected college coach, Jim Wacker. Wacker won 159 games and went 12-2 in tournaments during his career, which just goes to show you the type of coach he was at the college level. Although their run in Minnesota was not what they had hoped and was rather disappointing, I believe Sumlin actually learned many valuable lessons from Wacker and offensive coordinator Uncle Bob DeBosi. Despite coaching many academic All-Americans in Minnesota, only 2 players he coached went on to be drafted in the NFL, and both of them were in 1996 and both on the defensive side of the ball. So neither of which he really directly coached. This would not foreshadow the rest of his career, as he would rack up numerous names that have been high draft picks at the NFL level. Following 4 rough seasons, or 3 rough seasons, sorry. Following 4 rough seasons with Minnesota, most of the coaching staff was let go in 1996. Despite that fact, Sumlin was retained for the 1997 season under new head coach Glenn Mason, who brought with him coordinators Elliot Uzelak and David Gibbs. In 1997, Sumlin would actually coach quarterbacks for the first time after serving most of his career as a wide receiver coach, despite his past as a linebacker. After the 1997 season, in which he coached Corey Sauter, who went on to play 6 seasons in the NFL and 2 in NFL Europe, he would be hired as wide receiver coach with Purdue, his alma mater. This was his 9th season of coaching, so it actually took him 8 previous seasons to actually end up with his alma mater, which is rather rare. Typically, more often than not, coaches get their start as a graduate assistant at the college that they actually attended. This was not the case for Sumlin, but he finally found himself back home. Ultimately, it was a short stay, though. He stayed from 1998 to 2000, ultimately moving on in 2001 to take a promotion with Texas A&M. While at Purdue, however, he worked very closely with offensive coordinator Jim Chaney, installing a spread offense that would help players like Drew Brees, Matt Light, Vinny Sutherland, Chucky Okabe, and Brandon Gorin all end up in the NFL over that stretch. Following the 2000 season, as I mentioned, he would join Texas A&M to further his career as a coach by garnering assistant head coaching duties on top of his previous duties as a wide receiver coach. In 2002, just 1 season removed from joining Texas A&M, he actually got his first shot as an offensive coordinator. However, following the 2002 season, he would move on once again. Despite this, he actually ended up under Bob Stoops at Oklahoma. And despite his background as an offensive coach, he and wide receiver coach, he actually began by coaching tight ends and special teams. Uh, he spent 3 seasons in that role before he would move on to serve as the co-offensive coordinator and wide receiver coach for the 2006 and 2007 seasons. In 2008, he would ultimately move on to Houston as their head coach. This was his first stint as a head coach, and ironically, it was in the same city that he finds himself representing as the Houston Gamblers head coach. But that's not his only connection to the USFL, so stay tuned and I'll get into that in a minute. During his stint in Houston as a head coach, he actually coached 2 second-round picks, Donnie Avery and Sebastian Vollmer, both prominent names at the NFL level. Avery was a wide receiver who got picked by the Rams, while Sebastian Vollmer played tackle for the New England Patriots, where he collected multiple Super Bowl trophies. Following him being hired as the head coach in Houston, he would actually spend the next 13 seasons as a college head coach, beginning with a 4 season stint with Houston, spending from 2008 to 2011 with Houston. During this time, he would actually collect CUSA Coach of the Year in 2009 and 2011 before moving on to Texas A&M as the head coach, where he had once served as an assistant back in the early 2000s. In 2012, he would immediately win SEC Coach of the Year with Texas A&M. Once again, just displaying the type of coach he was and the type of respect he had garnered at this level. He would remain with Texas A&M for 6 seasons, ultimately not leaving until after the 2017 season. During this stint, he coached future first-round picks Ryan Tannehill, Luke Joeckel, Jake Matthews, Johnny Manziel, Mike Evans, Cedric Ogbuchi, Jermaine Ifedi, and Myles Garrett. That is an insane run of players for only 6 seasons as a head coach. Most of those guys are still in the league in one sense or another, and several of them are very prominent players and were still starters in the 2021 season, including Ifedi, Garrett, Tannehill, and Evans. Tannehill and Evans, as well as Garrett specifically, have grown into players that are very well respected at the NFL level and have actually achieved Pro Bowl status on multiple occasions. Mike Evans is one of those guys that might actually be one of the best wide receivers in the league, and he was coached directly by former wide receiver coach Kevin Sumlin. Um, how about that for a name on your resume? I mean, if you want to be a prominent head coach or a prominent coach at any level, how about putting your name and your stamp directly on Mike Evans? That's a hell of a name to hitch your wagon to. Um, After 2017, which ended up a disappointing season, he was hired by Arizona as their head coach following his dismissal from Texas A&M. While with Arizona, he would coach another 4 future NFL players, but only remain until 2020. He was fired after the 2020 season following a disappointing stretch that actually hurt his overall record more than it helped. He would spend the 2021 season out of football. Um, Ultimately, I think he was waiting for the right opportunity because I believe he had a couple offers on the table. It just wasn't what he was looking for. He wanted to remain as a head coach, and he found that opportunity in 2022 with the USFL, which actually marks his first opportunity to coach at the professional level. Not only as a head coach, but he gains the ability to be a general manager and select his own players, something that he has never really been able to do at the college level. He simply would recruit players and hope they would come to his team rather than actually having the ability to draft them and retain their rights for negotiation. Um, as you can see from his background, Kevin Sumlin has spent time around some of the most prominent and well tenured head coaches at the college level. He may never have coached at the professional level prior to this, but he sent enough players to the NFL to nearly fill his own roster. Sumlin is a good coach. Scratch that. No, he's a great coach who I think is well suited to this level of football. He has coached on the college level to success at every stop he's had outside of Minnesota and Arizona. He has developed players at a very high level who have gone on to see success at the professional level, which is going to be a huge advantage when it comes to recruiting players to his team as free agents. Players are going to see his success and his background as an NFL caliber player developer, and they are going to think that he is their best opportunity to leap to the next level, which should help him find more prominent players at the USFL level. His Houston Gamblers will be extremely fun to watch in 2022. And on top of that, I think he was actually one of the few coaches that was placed in a position where he already has a fan base in the Texas area. He spent, like I mentioned before, 4 seasons as a head coach at Houston itself, and then he spent 6 seasons as a head coach at Texas A&M, following a 2-season stint as an assistant coach at Texas A&M as well. He has spent the majority of his time coaching in the southern states in the U.S., which will help him garner more of a following in that area, the Texas area. As if that wasn't enough, Sumlin was actually born in Bruton, Alabama, just 190 miles south of Birmingham, Alabama, which is just going to give fans another reason to root for this Alabama native. He is a guy who has found success, as I mentioned before, as a head coach at a prominent level. He actually collected a 95-63 record with a 4-3 record in bowl games during his college stint as in 13 seasons as a head coach. He really only had one losing tenure as a head coach, and that was during his time at Arizona, where he only spent 3 seasons. Like I said before, that hurt his record more than it helped because he only compiled 9 wins in 3 seasons with Arizona. However, every coach has a stint where they have to deal with below average talent and try and make it work. That was simply the case at Arizona. Um, Arizona didn't feature any players that were really as prominent as the NFL talent he had had before, with names like Ryan Tannehill and Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans and Myles Garrett, who were all huge college stars. He is probably better suited to coach at the USFL level at this point than return to the college level. He finally gets the ability to pick his own players, which I think will be a huge asset to him in 2022 because he knows what he wants for each position group, and he went out and got those players. He will be one of the funner coaches to watch, I think, because he's got a real future at this level. Like I said before, he's only 57 years old. He may have 31 years of coaching experience under his belt, but he's relatively young as far as coaches come. We still see several coaches at the NFL level coaching into their 70s. It happens at the college level. It's happened at the CFL level as well. So we could see Kevin Sumlin potentially develop a long time position with the USFL should they stick around for the 3 seasons they have already slated and beyond. I think Sumlin is the type of guy who he never really garnered NFL attention as a head coach. So I think he's going to be the type of guy who would be more than happy to stay at the USFL level, assuming he is kept as a head coach during that stint, which I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. He might turn out to be one of the more successful USFL coaches when things are all said and done. That's all I've got for you today. I, for one, am a huge Kevin Sumlin fan. I've never been a huge college football fan, but when a guy is able to develop a record in which he has basically a third more wins than he has losses, there's a reason for it. He's a good coach. He's a solid talent evaluator and player developer, which is going to be huge for his players at the USFL level. Um, like I said, I think he's going to find success. I've said that about more often than not all of these coaches, but I'm an eternal optimist. I see what these guys have done in their past, and I see how it translates to the professional level, and I believe they can find success. It's just up to them to actually figure out how to do it. I think all of these coaches have very prominent backgrounds and actually should be garnering a lot of respect for the USFL and the diversification of the coaches that they picked. They picked coaches who have CFL backgrounds, USFL backgrounds, World League of Football backgrounds. They've coached in the NFL, the UFL, the AAF, NFL Europe, XFL. They basically every level of coaching that you can possibly imagine, including the high school level, they've done it. And that's exactly why players are flocking to the USFL. And we're seeing situations where players are actually opting out of CFL contracts to try and join this league. They all have a belief that this is going to work, and they are going to do their best to engage fans and bring them to the game that they now represent. I think Sumlin's fan base will be a huge addition to the USFL as well. It remains to be seen how successful he will be, but as I stated before, I think he's got the tools to find success at this level. Um, Once again, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for dropping in and watching this video. I hope you liked what you heard. If you did, let me know in the comments below and drop a subscribe, man. I'm fairly new to this. It's only been a couple of weeks. I've only got 40 subscribers so far, and those guys are rocking with me. So go ahead and join the crew. I'm going to be bringing more content in the future about the USFL, NFL, and CFL, as well as the XFL when they kick off next season. Any news that pops up about any of these leagues, I'll be trying to cover in a timely manner. So stay tuned here for your football news in the future for any league you follow. And I will try and cover it all. If you have any requests for videos, go ahead and drop those in the comments below too. I'm completely open to suggestions, and I have no basic format other than I am only covering football. So if you're a football nerd like me, this is the channel for you. So please stick around with me and watch as I continue to learn and grow in this YouTube thing. Um, Also, do me a favor, check out my affiliate marketing partnerships with eBay Sports Memorabilia, Amazon Music, Get Upside, as well as Seat Geek, where you can get $20 off any purchase by using my code SamShady at checkout. Thanks again for tuning in, and I appreciate all the support. Hopefully you're having a great day, because I know I am.